Oh, we're live.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody out there. We're going to be finishing up the last 5 episodes of tonight. We will not be doing our normal segment of the GWW Weekly. And next week, Pete, what was your impression of episode 8?
So we're actually at 9. We did 8.
Oh, we did 8? Okay, so we're on. Oh, that's right. We're on 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13.
Right.
So what was your impression of 9?
Oh, bollocks. It's been so long. So this is the episode where Detective Knight is being examined and interrogated by the police psychologist. This is the episode where Luke Cage beats up a couple of policemen that recognized him. Stryker and Alvarez have a kind of a headbutting almost over Stokes' death. A lot happened this episode. So I feel, a lot happened with the supporting characters. This is also, where Luke Cage meets up with his original doctor from the prison who gave him these powers by accident, and they start working on him to try and remove that shrapnel. So, like I said, this is a episode that's just packed with stuff. I'm glad they didn't make it into more than one episode or stretch it out any longer, because while all this stuff was important, could you imagine an entire episode devoted to treating Luke Cage? Just that? I mean...
So this is, that's...
That was the best part of the episode, though.
I agree.
Really?
But
I don't know. I had a problem with this stretch, this whole stretch of the episodes in terms of the duration for which Luke was injured, which seemed to stretch across like 3 or 4 episodes.
Yeah, it was long.
In a 13-episode season.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now this is what, the 3rd episode?
Yeah, because he gets shot at the end of
7,
and then he fights Stryker wounded for 8.
Yeah, and then 9, and then on to 10.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for a guy who's invulnerable, he's spent a lot of time being vulnerable.
Right. And I got the point of that, but I guess my overall feeling for this whole stretch, like 9 through 13, is and overall I feel like the second half, I haven't done metrics yet because I actually need to go back and like tally my episode by episode review scores and see like metrically how they came out. But subjectively, I feel like I preferred the second half of the season, which I know runs counter to a lot of, what else we hear amongst our own staff as well as kind of out on the internet.
Well, they're wrong, so it's okay.
But, I felt the second half of the season for me was better because they traded out Cottonmouth for Stryker. And while I kind of hated Stryker's debut episode, like his first full episode, right? Not when he shows up at like the tail end, his first appearance. But I overall, as villains go, I felt like in the second half you get like just completely crazy Alfre Woodard, right, running around with shades, which I think, I mean, as I called him in my reviews, kind of the sicker and more twisted version of Bonnie and Clyde. And then
Sorry.
No, that's me too. Whenever we do the live tweet, like then all of a sudden, like the tweet bombardment starts. Which is good. We appreciate it. So I felt like that combination plus Diamondback, when you start to realize how really sadistic and twisted he is, was a much more powerful combination in terms of on-screen villain performance than we had with just Cottonmouth. And I feel like Alfre just completely got out of her awkwardness. I guess I get the sense now, because I criticized her heavily for her opening arc in the show. I get the feeling that what happened was that she either she didn't know how that character was going to progress and was playing it very kind of goofy and awkward deliberately, or she had read the entire script, for the season and kind of knew where the character was going to go and found it harder to play the more innocent version. Because I felt like the more and more she turned and the more twisted she got, the more and more comfortable Woodard felt in that role.
Well, I would definitely agree with you on that. Where I would diverge was I think that I'm hoping that the way she was played in the beginning was deliberate, because it to me that uncomfortableness really played into what she was being asked to do. She was trying to give off this image of a not very corrupt, for the community politician, and she was doing a lousy job of it, which I thought fit her character really nicely. So, like I said, I'm feeling that it was a lot more of a deliberate choice, and I say that now watching the entire season and being able to completely analyze it from that point of view.
No, yeah, I like that. I like the thought that that awkwardness was deliberate, and what it showed was the characters. And so, I mean, really, Mariah Dillard, right, in a role as playing the role of a politician and feeling very uncomfortable in that skin, right, and then when she flips and just goes total gangster, it feels liberating, more comfortable, and more natural for her.
Yeah, we get to see the real her, almost like she's wearing a mask when she's dealing with her cousin. And once her cousin's out of the way, she's free to take her mask off and reveal what a piece of work she is.
Right. So Dave, any thoughts on episode 9?
Just that I was kind of disappointed. Like the best, like I was saying earlier, the best part I thought was kind of the mad scientist thing. And I thought it could have gone a little bit deeper into their background, like who were they really working for? I feel like I feel like it was meant to set it for a season 2, but still they just didn't give me enough to satisfy my hunger for season 1.
You mean getting more on kind of what was going on with Dr. Noah?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can see that.
I've got a hypothesis on that. I think.
Go on.
All right, so we've got that shadow organization with the chemicals that gave Daredevil his power, right? I mean, we know it's a company, but we don't really know what company necessarily. We've got that weird company that paid for Jessica Jones's operations that gave her her power, right? And then we got this shadow company that's running a prison, and what they're really doing is doing science experiments on the prisoners. Okay, it's a little early because we haven't seen Iron Fist.
Yep. Yeah, I think I know where you're going.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the plot for at least a part of the Defenders.
Oh, see, where I thought you were going to go is I thought you were going to say it was the Rand Corporation.
Oh, well, that may be, yeah, because they just give the initials in Jessica Jones.
What were the initials? Because I haven't seen.
I don't remember. Let me look.
So
talk while I'm looking.
so
the other thing I would have said, I thought too, would have been like, I was like on my seat ready for like somebody to jump out at them at like any time and like just try to capture Luke Cage. Like I was ready for something like bad to happen while he was in surgery. But nothing happened. That was just it. He was in surgery and he got out of surgery.
Yeah, so a little bit of what you're talking about happens in episode 10. So let's go ahead and segue into that. So in 9, I just to kind of plant us. So number 9, I scored as a 7.5 on our 10.0 scale, which across all mediums I use that as my score, indicating that good solid story, but just a shade shy of greatness. Like if they had just done, 1 or 2 or 3 things differently, it would have gone up into an 8.0. So Luke Cage episode 10, subtitle "Take It Personal," is the episode that kind of resolves the injury issue. So we open after the end of episode 9, where Luke, I believe, was in cardiac arrest, and finish out some of the scenes of his surgery. We get a lot of the mad scientist thing, like you mentioned, Dave, where Dr. Noah, and for some reason I'm forgetting his name right now, where he wants to keep Luke and talks about all of the great things that Luke can do as far as them unlocking the secret of why the experiment worked on him and his DNA, and how it could be used to create immortals. So Dr. Noah Bernstein, and help all types of healthcare and medical. Although I felt that was very disingenuous. I seriously doubt that is that altruistic. And kind of like you mentioned, between last episode and this episode, I kept, and I know I had hopes. Of course, none of them were proven. But I kept feeling that, like, every once in a while, I had this feeling that, like, S.H.I.E.L.D. was going to show up, or in this specific...
I know, exactly!
But in this specific instance, I kept thinking that a storm of, like, Hydra soldiers was going to storm the barn. And, of course, that turned out not to be the case. But we get that, and then we get this sequence where they then leave Bernstein's, and Luke is theoretically going back to his church in Savannah, Georgia, to try and find some answers. And then
that was cool.
And then from there, they depart and head back to New York, and the episode ends in Harlem Paradise, with the beginning of the Harlem Paradise hostage situation, Misty Knight getting shot, and Luke coming to her rescue, but with the episode ending with he, Misty, and Clara pinned down in Harlem Paradise. So Pete, you want to answer the question on the initials, and then also go ahead and take us through your thoughts on episode 10?
Yeah. So IGH Corporation is the one in Jessica Jones.
IGH.
Yeah. So I don't remember if they mentioned the corporation name in any of the other shows, but it just seems like a common thread to me so far. So I'm really curious to see where they take that. Yeah, and
I read a trade of Jessica Jones, I think at the tail end of 2015, and I can't remember exactly what the setup is, but Jessica, in the comics, Jessica actually receives her powers, I want to say, from the same truck that winds up giving Daredevil his powers. it's like a totally like off-screen thing that you don't see when the truck incident occurs with Daredevil,
Right.
or something that occurs while the truck is coming into New York. But it's like the same truck, and she gets her powers, and then Daredevil gets his. So yeah, it would be interesting if they took that approach. Of course, I hate to coin the cliche, but Marvel's approach of it being like it's all connected, which is why I thought, well, maybe that's all the Rand Corporation, and that's part of a strong part of the thread of the Iron Fist story is him trying to either trying to make up for some of the corrupt things that his dad did or the Rand Corporation did, and turn it around to being a little more of an up and up company. But what are your thoughts on episode 10?
Episode 10. I don't know. I kind of took it personal. No, I'm kidding. Bad joke.
It's funny. I did take it very personal because I'm from Savannah, so we'll talk about that here in a minute.
Nice. All right, so this one to me was a little bit filler. We go. He gets the shrapnel taken out of him. He doesn't. He learns, more about his wife that, maybe wasn't very good of him to learn, but probably in the long run will help him move on. And that he was pretty much marked from the moment he got there as a person of interest for these experiments that they've been conducting. And the depiction of the police, I don't know if anyone remembers, but in California, there was that former cop that went kind of crazy. And you remember who I'm talking about, David?
Oh, the Trayvon Martin incident.
No.
Not that one?
No, that wasn't in California.
Trayvon Martin? Yeah, that was in California. Wait, was it?
No.
Oh.
No, that was Florida.
Duran.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, the cops kind of went on an overzealous campaign to try and find the former officer, and we see that same kind of that same thing happening here with Luke Cage. Is they are tearing Harlem apart, they are trampling over people. They beat up a kid. The black cop beats up the black kid, and I mean it's really just pandemonium as far as there doesn't seem to be any order to how the police are conducting it. They're basically, it was almost Gestapo-like in if anyone's a fan of history. In their attempts to find Luke Cage. Really kind of disturbing. So I think they did a real good job with that aspect, and just showing how much of a panic the police are in. Trying to remember what else happened. There was some stuff with Dillard too, wasn't there?
Yeah, so Dillard was definitely part of the anti.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she was in the.
Right, so she was waging her anti-Luke Cage campaign, which was the thing that led to the Harlem Paradise hostage situation, right? Because she was holding an anti-Luke Cage rally in there. So Pete, anything else on episode 10?
Stryker's a dick.
He is.
This is also where we really start to see just the play between the two council people. I can't remember his name.
What's this,
But the other councilman.
I know it's not him.
Oh, Damian Boone.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know it's not him, but every time I see him, I go, oh, Shield Agent Seward.
Yeah,
Because they look so much alike. And in
they
fact,
really do.
I had to do a double take when he first came on, the first episode, and I was like, wait, that Shield Agent died, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Kind of a running gag. So Dave, what about you? What are your thoughts on episode 10?
I didn't think too much of it, honestly. Like the same thing with 9. I love the mad scientist scene, and then the rest of it just didn't hit me. I thought honestly that 12 and 13 were probably better.
Yeah, I would say definitely. So this is my lowest scoring episode of the entire 13. I rated this one a 5.5. So some of it is a little inside baseball, but not entirely, right? Some of it's definitely inside baseball. I was bugged with some of the Savannah sequences because they were just like not geographically accurate. So it was like they were driving in on Highway 80 and it like looked like the mountains, and I'm like, unless they were like 120 miles west of Savannah, it would not be mountainous on their approach to town. And then there were a couple other things that were disjointed. But the main thing about that sequence that truly bugs me, right, is a valid bug, is Luke does this whole thing. There's this whole mystery behind this, like, Stryker's origin, right? And the thing he says to Luke that he's his brother, and Luke going, oh, no, that's not possible. And there's this whole, like, drama around him going home. That sequence in this episode is less than 10 minutes. Like, I think it's like 5. But he goes home. He shows up at a church. There's no one there. We get no indications of whether or not Luke's parents have passed, or maybe his father's died.
Yeah.
There's just a big hole. And I could deal with that a little. Like, I could deal with the concept that when he got sent away to jail, like, his parents disowned him and he just had zero contact. But what bugs me is the complete MacGuffinism of this, where it's like, I need to go home and, like, figure this out with Stryker. And he goes home, he goes up into this church, he doesn't talk to another human being in the town, and just through a sequence of images and, like, flashbacks, he figures it out. And I'm like,
kind of jogs his memory.
I'm like, did you really have to drive all the way back to Savannah for that? Because I got to tell you, I grew up there, and there's no way in hell that I'd drive all the freaking way back to Savannah, right?
All right. Well, here's the thing, though. If you're walking into another room and you forget why you came in, what do you do? Right? You go back the way you came and remember.
Well, I don't personally do that. Maybe that's the the notion that they would take a side trip to Savannah, and he would walk into the church and suddenly realize after all this time that he really knew that Stryker was his brother, I felt was a little preposterous.
There is definitely a psychological component to remembering, and memory being state dependent and also to a certain degree location dependent. Sometimes going to places is a way to jog the memory, and while he may not have known at the time, I think part of that is him realizing what he saw as a kid. So I can kind of buy that from a basic psychological point of view, but I would agree with you. It does seem kind of like a ridiculous thing to do. That's like driving from Oregon to Southern California, right?
Right, and granted, they were in, yeah, and granted they were in the vicinity, right? Because the thing I pieced together was just kind of an approximation of where Seagate Prison fictionally, like, should be. And they were not that far from the town of Savannah.
Isn't, like, Savannah's in Georgia though, and Harlem
that's in New York.
Right. So from Harlem down there,
right.
was a long trip, but they had to go down there to find Dr. Bernstein.
That's true. I did kind of assume that Bernstein, whatever his name is, Bernie, was up closer to New York, but
No, they had. I forget exactly when it was that they said it, but they indicated that he was in Georgia. And like I said, that Highway 80 is a state highway in Georgia. It actually comes over from Texas, and drives in through Statesboro, Georgia, and takes you all the way out to the coast. So it wasn't so much the distance. And Pete, I agree with you that physical location can do a lot for memory, but I guess I tend to view that as it does a lot for like a point memory, right? When you're trying to remember like an event or a thing, but like the notion that from age, whatever, 9 or something through his entire, childhood life until he left home, that he was constantly around Stryker, and that it was the moment of being in the church like 20 years later would supposedly allow him to piece it all together. And maybe that's just the way it was rendered on screen, or the way it was shot, or something. But I felt like it would have gone a long way to have, a character from Savannah enter and say something, or even for him to find like a journal or a diary or just like one thing to like tip him off. I just felt like the scene was very contrived, and therefore they could have done without it from a pacing perspective.
Yeah, makes sense.
So that was my big takeaway from that. So I don't know. And other than that, I was just happy that the whole Luke Cage like walking around limping and being hobbled was finally over. I think my big thing also as to why I was so down on the episode was I feel like, and I guess they pulled it off in the end, but I felt at the time when I watched this episode, I was like, this show, given its subject matter and kind of how they're approaching it, and that it's a very street level Marvel show, which granted Daredevil and Jessica Jones were. Again, Daredevil and Jessica Jones weren't about a minority, right? And a relatively, I think to a lot of people, a relatively obscure character. Although Power Man in the Marvel Universe has a very long legacy, especially compared to Jessica Jones. But it didn't have the marquee actors in title roles that I think brought people into Jessica Jones, right, with Kristen Ritter. The comment I made at the time was like, this show can't afford the luxury of resting on its laurels for an episode, right? I felt like this show couldn't afford to take a break. Whereas I feel like there are other shows that can, right? Not to get any spoiler details, but like this season of The Walking Dead, right? Episode 1 was an incredibly intense, like emotionally berifting episode, right? And then the second one of the season was very light. And as I watched it, I was like, nothing really happened this episode. But then I was like, thank goodness nothing happened this episode, right? I was like physically exhausted after episode 1 of this season of The Walking Dead. And I was like, oh, I get it. Like, but I, like this show, I'm like, I don't think they can afford to do that, because like the fight scenes and the battle scenes, they're not like white knuckle. Like I never really feared that like Luke was gonna lose or like he was gonna get hurt. And yes, he got shot, but I was like, I felt like this show needed to find a way to keep up the intensity. And so this episode being as softly paced as it was, I just felt wasn't overall good for the show. And a lot of stuff was junked in. Like you said,
I agree with you.
Yeah, like Peter said, like a lot happened this episode. A lot happened with the end result being that not a lot happened.
Right? They should have kept it like intense, kind of violent, no breaks, instead of like giving us these peaceful moments.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I felt. The only people moment that I want to see in this show is the Claire Danes and not Claire Danes. I think that's a girl on Homefront.
Claire, though.
Yeah, Claire is having Claire the Claire Luke Cage like walking scenes in Harlem, which which I compare to like the Denny Crane. What's the guy's name?
Oh, you just want them to have coffee.
Well, no, I don't need to see that. I just the scenes of the two, we'll talk about that later too. The scenes of the two of them walking down the street, like having this ideological exchange, I feel like are some of the best quiet moments of the show.
I totally agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know, thinking back, some of my favorite parts of Daredevil and Jessica Jones have been those introspective moments where it's just the main character and someone else, and they're just walking and they're having a conversation and they're acting like normal people. You don't get that as much in Jessica Jones because let's face it, she's damaged goods at that point in time, so she's really not talking. But when they do that, I feel like it makes the show better from a character development standpoint.
No doubt. So let's move on to episode 11.
Now you're mine.
Yeah. So again, we fully get into the Harlem Paradise hostage event. That was, I need to go back to episode 10 really quickly. That was the other thing that I felt was kind of stupid and bugged me, and was part of the reason why I scored that episode so low, is because in that episode is where Misty initially goes up and challenges Stryker, and I'm like, dude, you just took a cop hostage like last episode, and you're just standing out in the open for anybody to ID.
That was so dumb. Yeah, her going to the club by herself.
Yeah. So episode 11 is where they have another they've had the other confrontation. They figure out a way to get to get out from being pinned. Luke takes Misty to the basement and knows about a hidden access way to a lower level. Does his best at first aid. Misty's losing a lot of blood in her arm. Claire eventually also gets away and comes down and joins them. And then we have multiple dynamics, right? We have the hostage situation with, I just call her Detective Priscilla because I can't remember her last name. And the political intrigue of Mariah Dillard equipping the police force with hammer tech. We have the cops showing up, the SWAT team showing up with the Judas Bullet Light version, and a few other things. And we finally get a Stryker, I don't want to say takedown, but just, Luke kind of finally, I think at that point in the show, in the series, we get to a point where Stryker is out of the full grade Judas bullets when he wastes his final shot on Luke, which I breathed a sigh of relief, because as long as that weapon was around, it just kept being a threat that they were going to go back and rehash the whole things we had just got done saying we were glad they were moving on from. So, and Shades gets arrested at the end of this episode.
It's about time, really.
I found that turn of events very strange, because I was coming to look at Shades as like the ultimate smooth operator, and just figured like he would be the guy who would never get arrested. So I was very surprised when that happened. But I don't know. What were your guys' thoughts on this episode?
I actually, I once again enjoyed this episode. Big surprise. So I agree. I really liked the kind of the political intrigue. We're suddenly introduced to this assistant DA who just shows up out of nowhere. I don't know. I don't know what side he's on. I don't know if he's a plant. I don't know if he's there because he wants to try and figure out what's really going on. They really don't fully address, in my opinion, what he really is doing there. Was it his assignment? Did he go down there on his own? What's going on with him?
I think I did appreciate how they did come around on him and have him drop a line that because when he shows up, I initially thought he was political muscle, right?
Yeah, so did I.
Being brought in for oversight and adult supervision and to lean on Priscilla and basically have her SWAT team storm the club, right, in the hostage situation. But I really appreciated later on that they revealed that his biggest concern was he didn't want the cops getting equipped. The reason he wanted Mariah to resolve the situation quickly is he didn't want the cops getting equipped with Judas Bullet Light. I
want to pose a question there with that. Do you guys think that this would be a perfect time for like a Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Q-in with the whole thing going on with the Registration Act, where he maybe is somehow like an Inhuman, worried that these could be used, to keep superheroes in line? That's like far-fetched, but that was kind of what I was thinking, maybe that there'd be some sort of tie-in.
No, I never thought that was going to happen. I guess the only thought I had about any kind of tie-in around those scenes was, we should talk about the Marvel evolution on Netflix, because there's a couple things I haven't figured out. I haven't been able to understand yet. I guess the one thought that occurred to me was, eventually in the current Daredevil run in comics, Daredevil becomes a prosecutor.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was interesting with that ADA showing up, and it made me wonder a little bit if they turn that corner on Daredevil, say in like season 3 or whatever of Daredevil, or 4. If they will go down a path of him becoming a prosecutor and having that guy who showed up
be his boss or something.
Maybe not his boss, but maybe a colleague, or like the guy who's supposed to show him the ropes.
Imagine him and Foggy going up against each other. That'd be an interesting court case to watch.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It definitely would.
But I think we're getting off topic.
So I was pretty happy with season 11, particularly after like the series, in my opinion, bottomed out with episode 10.
Yeah, you definitely got more action in this one. There's a lot more going on.
Yeah.
There's that ticking clock with McKnight.
Yeah.
Not McKnight. Knight. Officer Knight's and her wounds. There's definitely that ticking clock there. They got to get her out before she bleeds out.
Right.
We have just a fantastic. I mean, Claire's a badass in this one.
Yeah, I love she and Misty doing the takedown on Shades. I thought that was one of the better parts of the episode.
Dillard's political opponent is just flat out killed by Stryker.
Right. Yeah, and you get a lot of Luke Cage badassedness in this as well.
Oh yeah.
I think by this point in the series they are past the problems that I felt that they had with fight choreography. The only thing, and I wasn't. It's a little unfair to mention it at this point. At this point, I was not. At this point, of course, I was thinking that Misty was going to lose her arm.
Yeah.
Which was going to be the setup to her getting the bionic arm, which is what really sets her apart in the Marvel universe, and I guess kind of qualifies her to be running around, occasionally partnering with superheroes, and so in this episode, I thought that's where they were going to go, and they didn't. And it didn't bug me that much at this point, but because of the way the show ends in episode 13, I was disappointed. Later on.
I think it'll come back around because when you sustain an injury like that, there's going to be some muscular degeneration while you're healing, and there's going to be some recovery. So it's very possible that something can happen next season, or in Iron Fist or the Defenders.
Very true. Very true. So let's go on and talk just about, because we're running a little long here. Let's go ahead and talk about episodes just 12 and 13 together.
They really belong together.
Yeah.
Yes. So let me open with that. So one of my biggest comments about this pair of episodes is I felt like the season finale should have been episode 12. I felt like it should have been kind of like The Walking Dead ends their seasons, right? Where the final episode of the season is typically an extended episode by like 10 minutes or so in some cases. I really felt like the series finale should have been episode 12 in the first 20 minutes of episode 13.
Yeah.
So basically, had they ended with the Claire Luke Cage walkaway after the fight, I felt like that would have been great.
Oh yeah, totally. Put a stamp on it, and it's done.
Right.
And no one would have been unhappy, but they had to do the setup.
Right, and I feel like all of those things that happened after that, I would have been happy if that would have been the opening 40 minutes of episode 1 of season 2. And just to kind of set up the framework for the line of questioning for those remaining 40 minutes, one of my big problems, and just to connect it also to the thing I mentioned before about how Marvel shows are going to work on Netflix, my whole problem is Netflix has said that they're only going to do 2 of these shows a year.
Oh, no.
Right? For Marvel, right? So I'm like, you already have Iron Fist and the Defenders in the queue, right, for 2017. I mean, are you not going to go back to Daredevil and Jessica Jones in 2018? Like, I feel like you have to, right? Because they're popular and that's what took people in.
What about Punisher? If they do that.
Yeah, you have Punisher in pipeline too, right? That's the one thing I haven't been able to figure out where that's dropping. But I'm like, but then
Punisher's this year. Who knows?
That'd be really weird.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way it can be, right? I mean, we only have November and December left. And then, so Luke Cage, so season 2 of Luke Cage may not be until, right, 2019. So I'm like, where are they going to deal with all this stuff if he's supposed to show up in the Defenders? Like, so one possibility is that they do that is part of the Defenders, right? That maybe they undo a lot of this in the Defenders, or they resolve it in the Defenders. But then my thing is, then why spend 40 minutes of the finale, right, putting it in if you're going to resolve it in the first 10 minutes of the Defenders, which you have to because he's headed for jail again, right?
Yeah. So,
or you do the janky thing of this is another thing that happens, like squeeze somewhere in between the timeline of all these shows, which is creating the problem of they become very muddled, and you're like, is this before Avengers or after Avengers? Is this before the events in Jessica Jones or after the events in Jessica Jones? So go ahead, Pete. I just wanted to frame it, Yeah.
So, I just did a quick cursory look, and so far for 2017, we've got Iron Fist, Defenders, and Punisher coming out. Defenders and Punisher don't yet have a firm release date. Iron Fist, of course, is March 17th currently. So we'll see how that goes. I would agree with you. I'd like to see a lot more coming out, but I don't know how much.
Maybe there's going to be some sort of time lapse that we don't know about in the Defenders, and that's not resolved until 2018 with season. Maybe 2018 is when they do another season of Daredevil, Luke Cage, and Jessica Jones.
Maybe. I'm of the opinion that the first episode or 2 of the Defenders is probably going to be them dealing with all this crap, because currently only Jessica Jones and Luke Cage know each other.
Right.
You know,
Although they do telegraph the setup of the Matt Murdock introduction, right? I mean,
yeah.
I guess
they're telling you he's going to be that's what's going to happen.
Right. I have half a mind that Defenders opens, like literally the opening scene is them in court with Matt Murdock defending Luke Cage.
Right, because Fish finds the documents proving Lucas's innocence.
Right.
So, what's his last name? Damn it.
Carl Lucas.
Carl Lucas.
Yeah.
That is his last name. Yeah, proving Carl Lucas's innocence. So I think that's going to be. I think you're right. I think the first Defenders is probably going to open up in the courtroom with Matt Murdock laying the slap down on the state, saying, "Look, this guy was innocent. You guys convicted him wrong. I move that this be dismissed. Yada yada," and life goes on.
Right.
But I guess if I were to have a problem with the way it ended, is I would have liked to have seen Matt come into that police station,
right,
or perhaps them getting not talking about the donuts, which I appreciated that last scene,
right.
but maybe ending it where they get there and Murdoch is waiting at the wherever the hell they're going.
Yeah,
the U.S. Marshals.
Right, a more solid reveal, right? Instead of stuff. I mean, here's my thing: they spent it's an inexorably long finale episode after the final fight, and we've seen these kind of setups before, right? Where the fight, even in movies, where the fight ends relatively early in the movie, and you have a big denouement. But my thing is, if you're going to do that, you need to do something really powerful with it, right? And other than the Luke Cage speech in the precinct, which I thought was awesome, but still. I'm like, man, part of me so much wanted them to pull like a CW, right? Which the CW and in particular the Flash, particularly this season, does an excellent job of squeezing in that reveal, that shocking reveal, like in literally the last 20 seconds of the show, right? Yeah. I almost feel like you could have had Claire, because Claire goes by a telephone pole and rips off like a little it's one of those flyers like with the tattered cattails on the bottom with like a phone number, and you can pull it off, and she goes and pulls off one of those, which seems to is a self-defense course being given by I think her name is by Colleen Wing, who's another character in the Marvel universe, and I think is the connection point through which Claire will get introduced to Danny Rand.
I think you're right there.
And I'm like, they could have had her run in the car. I feel like I really wish that they had just like, since what everybody really wanted out of the season was some crossover drops, right? And I understand the choice to not do that. I kind of feel like they could have just crashed the boards and done a bunch of them in the finale episode, right? They could have had Claire meet Colleen Wing and mention Danny Rand or something. They could have had Matt Murdock show up. I keep saying I would have loved to have seen Sam Rockwell show up as Justin Hammer.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
It's so awesome, right?
Go on.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I had another thought, but finish your thought first. Sorry.
No, that was it. I just
okay.
At the end of the day, I just felt like the finale fell short. And I was really, when the fight ended, I was like, oh man, there's 40 minutes left. And I was like, they're going to do like this huge major setup, right? Of like everything that's coming on Netflix next season. And it just all ends kind of on a disappointing note.
I mean, they did do the setups. It was just the more subtle ones rather than the slap in the face ones that we're used to.
Yes. But it was also like, I really dislike him being apprehended by the marshals, because I'm like, again.
So that's what I was going to add.
Yeah,
do you actually think they're the marshals? And do you think that something might happen on his way to prison, like that, like the the secret corporation like showing up, to try to capture him.
Yeah, the dude, the one dude, like, was I guess the donut conversation that you mentioned, Pete. The one dude was very casual. For some reason, it felt really janky to me that they were so hardcore when they showed up in the precinct, and as soon as they were alone in the suburban or the Yukon or whatever it is, they were totally casual. They're like, "Hey, dude, did you read this book? Like, hey, we could stop at the Dunkin' Donuts on the way out of town." And I'm like,
yeah, like. What
So
U.S. Marshal does that?
Here's my explanation for that.
Yeah.
All right. They've seen Luke Cage in action.
Right.
Right. They know straight up that if he wanted to just get out and leave, they could not stop him.
Right.
So
it's the Man of Steel thing.
Yeah, he is completely there because he wants to do the right thing. He's being cooperative. And I think, I mean, I'm not in law enforcement, so I can't say for sure, but I think, at least what it seems to me, is that they are appreciative of the fact that he is not going apeshit on them and wanting to bust some heads.
Yeah, although they were, but remember in the precinct, their initial thing was they were going to put cuffs on him.
Yeah.
And Detective Priscilla kind of waved him off.
Right, but I think that was for show,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a trope, but the feds are always portrayed as the by-the-book badasses in front of the local cops.
Yeah.
Remember, Die Hard?
Yeah. No, I can totally see that.
So I'm hoping it's that. I'm hoping they're not the Shadow Corporation, because that would just be kind of corny and bad writing, in my opinion, because really the cops should have checked their credentials and would have checked their credentials.
Right.
So I'm thinking they're legit. I'm thinking they just appreciate the fact that Luke is accepting of his fate and willing to cooperate. I don't actually think they would have stopped for donuts.
Yeah. It's definitely a matter of hope. I know it's not real. I definitely had moments where I'm like, when they got in the truck and they were completely casual, I was like, these mofos are SHIELD agents, right? They're taking him to the Triskelion or something, right?
Well, yeah, but that's all been destroyed. So,
another potentially wild theory could be because Iron Fist, because Daniel Rand is incredibly rich, at least at different points in his history, is that they're really undercover security guys for the Rand Corporation that went to pick him up. So I don't know. Yeah, it'll be interesting. The one thing I will say is episode 12 I thought was a great build up. I love Mariah and Shades continuing this Bonnie and Clyde shtick. As we extend that over to episode 13, though, I was completely grossed out by Mariah kissing him.
That was weird.
I was like,
I wasn't sure what to make of it, because it really did seem, I won't say forced on her part, but not about romance.
Yes, I didn't think there was anything romantic about it. I think it was completely indicative of this weird sharing of power between them. It's almost like an intellectual romance.
Yeah, or
romance of evil.
Not even a romance, but like a dominance play.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Is she ceding dominance? Is she establishing her dominance? What is she doing?
Well, I guess I thought of it more not as dominance, but more of an expression of evil and power concurrency. Like it's like because we are two sharks, right? We can afford to be this, express ourselves in this manner to each other because we know it doesn't matter.
Either way, it's just weird.
Yes, yeah, completely. I forget how I described it. It was like, oh, Mrs. Robinson kisses Jeffrey Dahmer. It's kind of how I felt about it. There are not a lot of things that turn my stomach, or with regards to like sexuality in movies or whatever. But that I was like, ah! I was just like, I don't need to see that ever again.
Yeah,
Very disturbing.
I will say it was kind of cool. They did a great nod in this series. They did a great nod to costumes.
Yes.
We had Luke Cage's original costume, and we had Diamondback's original costume.
Oh, is that with the hammer suit? Look, that's
the hammer suit.
Okay.
I mean, here, let me pull it up. Here, let's see, tools, right?
Yeah, screen share. So while Peter's pulling that up, I'll mention the other thing in episode 11, which not 11 but 12. So 12 was actually my highest rated episode of the series, and I wound up giving it a score that is not presenting itself on the website. So I may have screwed that up when I posted it. I wound up giving this a 9.5, I think. I'm trying to remember this. I know the second highest one that I rated was.
There it is.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Yeah, I mean.
So I wound up giving episode 11 12 a 9.5, and it was mostly because of the scenes with Method Man in this episode. I think his so Luke runs into Method Man when he diverts from his own effort to escape to break up an attempted robbery at a convenience store. Which says loads about his character itself. But then he meets Method Man, who's playing a customer in the store who's being robbed. And the following day, Method Man shows up on a morning show being hosted by Sway and Heather B. And if you're, if you followed like hip hop culture or news or been around it, or just are familiar with like the last, I think what was the last generation of true MTV VJs. Sway was either an MTV VJ or he was actually on BET. I can't remember which, probably both. But at any rate, and of course Sway shows up on episodes of Empire as well. But Method Man gives this really powerful, some really powerful lines in his dialogue with the two of them, where I just feel like more than anyone or any event, he personifies and sums up everything that the character of Luke Cage has been scripted to represent, and everything that they've attempted to do with the show, in the matter of about 2 or 3 lines. And then he has one of the best songs I've felt like that have been performed on the show, with solid lyrics. The song's called "Bulletproof Love," which just talks about like how all the things Luke is trying to do, all the things that people are saying about Luke Cage that are shady, and the fact that despite all of that, that there is this huge community following and backup for him throughout Harlem. So
along those lines too, I think it's really important to emphasize how much of a character that music, the hip hop scene, the R&B scene plays in this series. It's really kind of the hidden character, the hidden gem. You've got legitimate fantastic artists doing their stuff into the background. So I think I'm not a big into R&B or hip hop, but I really appreciated that aspect. It made it really made it so much better, having that legitimate those legitimate musicians there doing their thing. And I also really enjoyed that Method Man scene because, you know, that's how it would happen too. I mean, these guys, they go to the corner market, you know, they BS.
Right.
I mean, it was really cool. You know, I don't know what Method Man's been up to, but I'd imagine right now he'd probably be in a convenience store picking up a snack, you know?
Right. And just my own comment on the music, like one of the things I really love about the music too is that it's not just rap, right? Which would have been an easy thing to do, right? Totally could have phoned it in by just getting a bunch of rap stars, right? But I love if you listen to it, what they've done is they've taken music from different eras, and spread peanut butter them across the show. So you have, you know, rap, you have 21st century rap, you have kind of some 1990s style rap, you definitely have 70s R&B, you have stuff from the 50s and 60s, which leans more toward jazz. You definitely have some background tracks that are stuff from like the 30s. And that panache of like African American music throughout history is huge, just huge in the show because it shows in its level of attention to detail, in telling what I have to say at the end of the day is a minority superhero story, which is uniquely different from the stuff that we normally get. And I don't mind the stuff that we normally get, but you know, at the end of the day, I have to appreciate this kind of focal point being placed on trying to expand on the demographics of an entertainment genre that is still predominantly, you know, kind of monochrome. So,
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I loved the music. It was all of it was really well thought out. It you know, it helped the mood significantly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Dave, we've kind of boxed you out. So, what are your thoughts on episode 12 and 13?
Just to totally agree with you. I definitely thought same thing with you. 12 was probably the best one. And the only thing I really cared for in 13 was that the mad scientist was working on Stryker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that they do something different with him than the obvious, right? The obvious thing is, oh, he'll show up in season 2 of Luke Cage. I would love for him to show up as one of the antagonists in the Defenders.
Yeah. Maybe part of that Shadow Corporation.
Yeah. Yep.
And or Dave?
What?
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
What?
Agasicles and I like to talk. So, you know, feel free to jump in if you feel like we're full of it.
Oh, no.
So anything else on episode 12 and 13, Dave?
Nah, I don't really have anything more to add. I kind of just threw out my conspiracy theories.
All right. Well, I tell you what, to take us out, why don't you give us any remaining conspiracy theories, any input on what you want to see from Luke Cage season 2, and anything that you want to see in 2017 in Marvel shows on Netflix that are some like platform off of or extension from what we've seen in Luke Cage.
Overall, I thought Luke Cage was okay. It wasn't great, only because of how slow the first part of the season was and too much heavy emphasis on supporting characters. I feel there should have been, you know, more into Luke Cage, a little bit more into the Seagate stuff. You know, a little bit of weak acting from some you know, actors. For season 2, I really hope that it's totally brand new and, you know, it surprises us, and that there's more cameos. Very much like Jessica Jones and Daredevil season 2 had a bunch of cameos. I really hope, I hope with like the whole secret corporation thing is dealt with in the Defenders. So, and I just hit throw it out there, but I'd really love to see some sort of like at least a little bit of a reference to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but with the season right now being focused in LA with Ghost Rider, I don't know if that's going to happen unless Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. happens to like move over to the conflict going on in New York right now. But anyways, that's my. I don't know if like ABC and Netflix can make that happen.
Cool, very cool, very cool. I would be cool for any S.H.I.E.L.D. connection. Like it doesn't have to be like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. the show.
Yeah.
But there are, in particular, like say in Deadpool, right? There are lots of agents showing up that are extensions of like the S.H.I.E.L.D. franchise that could be used here. I would actually love to see Bob, Agent of Hydra, show up at some point. That would be hilarious.
Or like, okay, so here's like an example. Like, since Bobby and because you reminded Bobby and what's his name are out of S.H.I.E.L.D. right now. So they could like somehow, like some of the characters that are no longer like mentioned Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., like they could show up. That would be cool.
Yep. All right, guys, and viewers and customers, this is a wrap of Harlem Nights, a limited series special segment for Seed and Nerd, where we've been stepping in to provide some additional content reviewing season 1 of Luke Cage on Netflix. So I would guess this crew will likely be back, or some formation of this crew will be back to review Iron Fist or The Defenders or Punisher, whichever comes first. I guess Iron Fist in March 2017. So it'll probably be us doing Iron Fist. I think maybe, you never know.
Yep.
But
otherwise, you can catch most of us on GWW Weekly thus far.
That's right.
And, don't forget that.
Yeah. So next week. So what we've been doing with GWW Weekly is we've been splitting time to do this. Now that we've done this wrap up, next week we will firmly be into GWW Weekly, which is just kind of a conversational podcast where we kind of pass the talking stick around to a different co-host each week, and they start us off with whatever topic they want to, and then we go around the room with each person talking about the nerd thing topically that has interested them the most.
Like a roundtable fireside chat type thing.
Yes, exactly. So we'll be back with that full time next week. So thanks so much for joining in. If you want to follow us, you can follow Peter Morrow at Edrickson Tarot on Twitter. You can follow me at Agasicles Stamas on Twitter. You can follow Dave at comicbook90 on Twitter. So keep tuning in to GWW Weekly when that takes over this time slot next week. Thanks again, and we are out of here.